Joshua Smith here, and welcome to the GSD Mode podcast. Now get shit done and smash that subscribe button now. All right, what is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode podcast. We are joined again here with my good friend Ben Barber, and we are on session number 4, where Ben and I each week in this series are breaking down just top tips, top strategies, and just extremely important and helpful information that we highly feel that you guys need to understand and know in order to go out there and kick ass and crush it and have massive success in the short sale and REO world. And we've talked about so far in this series, just in case you guys have missed these, we'll have links below. This is part 4 in this series. And again, we'll have those links below if you missed any of those. But in part 1, we talked about why it's important for you to get into REO and short sales as a real estate agent or as a team, brokerage, whatever role that you're playing in this real estate industry. But, our Ben and my personal beliefs on why we feel it's extremely important to add this as a leg of your business, right? It can be another consistent, stream of new business coming in, plus it also protects your real estate business from becoming vulnerable and really it allows you to become recession proof, right? So when the markets shift, markets tank, whatever, it allows you to go out there and pivot and be recession proof. So just because a market crash is taking place or the economy's in a recession, it doesn't mean that your business needs to be in a recession, right? So go deep into that. Part 2, we talk about our top advice and tips and ways, proven ways of how to go have success at getting into REO as well as short sales. Part 3, we broke down the overall process, right? So you have expectations of what the process looks like from from start to finish when you go out there and take an REO account as a listing agent, as well as a short sale. So that way you guys know the overall steps, the main kind of overall steps, and you can start preparing and start mastering and learning those things and so forth. Now, today we are going to talk about once you get into REO, right, is an approved agent with a bank and an outsourcer. And, Ben and I got a question actually yesterday from a friend of ours that we're in a coaching group with. And, she had asked, hey, can you guys help us or help me with the terminology? You talk about banks, you talk about outsourcers, and look, we apologize up front if some of that terminology can be confusing. Make sure if you guys are listening to this, you don't understand it, just leave us a comment and we'll definitely, let you know. We've been in this world for so long. Sometimes we don't always have awareness of the terminology. It's kind of like when you go to your doctor and, they're like, oh, well, you gotta strain the top right of your gluteus maximus. What the, like, can't you just say ass cheek, bro? Right. Right. So anyway, a bank, the only difference when we're talking about REO between banks and outsourcers, just in case you're having that same question is, obviously banks have properties that get foreclosed upon, which they classify or call REO. And my theory on that is it's just a PR stunt because it sounds better than foreclosure, right? And that just stands for real estate owned, meaning that it's a bank owned property, right? Well, some banks choose to go out there and manage those, create a department and manage those in-house. So when we talk about working with a bank, is a listing agent to list their REO properties, that means that you're going to be working directly with somebody, an asset manager at that bank. And then some banks choose, instead of developing that department, to outsource it to outsourcer companies that specialize in this. But here's the important thing overall is the process is the same. Doesn't matter if it's in-house with the banks, doesn't matter if it's with an outsourcer. Now they all might have different contracts and, different addendums and a few different things that they like of how things to be done, but from a high level kind of contractual standpoint and process standpoint, like that industry as a whole here in the US is just, kind of somehow came together and decided to follow the same process as a whole. So that's the difference between an outsourcer and a bank, but it's all the same thing. You working with an asset manager who's going to be your contact. All that process is the same, right? So we broke all that down both for short sales and REO. Now today we're going to talk about, and this is something that the great REO and short sale agents understand. When I say great, the ones that have a lot of success with this, but this is something that I see most fall short on is they don't understand how to leverage these. Right now you've got this short sale, you're getting short sale listings and so forth. Well, how do you leverage that to get more business? And then same thing on the REO standpoint. So we're going to cover that in detail today. But first off, man, Ben, welcome back, brother.
Hey, always glad to be here. Thanks again for having me.
Yeah, 100%, dude. And for those that haven't watched those first three, just real quick, just so you guys know who Ben is and kind of our experience, because sometimes if you're just stumbling across this and not a subscriber to the channel and so forth. So Ben was in the REO world for over 10 years on the side of the banks and the outsourcers, meaning, he was an asset manager, senior asset manager, managing all of these assets and personally is from the asset manager roles, been involved in over 11,000 sales. And during that time, it wasn't just in the asset manager role, he ran and oversaw eviction departments and kind of anything and everything and got to the point of becoming a senior executive, creating a lot of the systems that a lot of the biggest institutions still use today and so forth. So he has extensive knowledge, kind of the insider knowledge, if you will, from that world. Where then my experience comes from, just being a top REO and short sale agent, especially between 2008 and 2012 in my market, where 90% of the deals being done here. I mean, we got hit so hard. Phoenix, Arizona was one of the hardest hit markets in the country during that time frame, during the Great Recession, where, dude, if we didn't adapt into REO and short sales, you were it was survival. Like you were scraping by, right? So we had to adapt quickly and we went out there and built one of the top REO and short sale teams in the country, during that period of time. So, we both have a lot of experience, but from different angles of that. So, with that being said, Ben, as we jump into, and let's just start with, on the REO side, because there's different ways of leveraging REO, and again, in ways that a lot of people don't think of. So, from your kind of perspective, an agent, team leader, whatever, lands a good REO account. They're starting to get fed business. What are some of your most best tips, top tips, for them to leverage that to gain more business from that?
Yeah. And that's a great question. That's why I like doing this with you, because it's nice to have both sides of it, because you can speak to the marketing aspect once you're out there. And like you stated, I mean, I lived behind the computer, managing thousands of assets and different personalities with agents and agent types all across the country. So the number one thing that I think is that once you get your foot in the door, you have to keep feeding that beast. So you have to perform. I think that's the number one thing, because it's like, there are strategies where once you land one account, you can now take that and you can go land another account by saying, hey, I am a Fannie Mae direct agent, and that looks good on your resume. It looks good when you're submitting applications. But if you can't perform, then you're going to be a one and done. And so what we're looking at is that once you get that property, it's all about giving the highest level of service that you ever have done, because you're establishing rapport, you're establishing the pace of this relationship. So it's going out and completing every task timely, but also accurately. Like, one of the biggest headaches in the asset management world is the occupancy inspection. And from your experience, that occupancy inspection, it's a very short time frame. It's 24 hours to complete an occupancy inspection. Well, a lot of times agents will get a little bit lazy. They won't complete that inspection accurately. They'll just mark that the property is occupied, so that it then triggers a 1 to 2 week follow-up task for them to go re-verify occupancy or time to prepare cash for keys. The problem there is that we're just wasting days on market. And that's why I know we talk about this a lot with REO University, but once an agent understands a scorecard and how outsourcers and asset managers and sales managers are bonused, you can understand why that task is so important, that it's completed accurately and it's completed on time. But I think that's one of the major drawbacks, is because now we have a property that is sitting an extra 7 to 14 days. There could be damage that's happening to the property. It can now go to the eviction department and start kind of flooding the eviction department with extra work that's not necessary. And now we're stroking a check to our national eviction attorney to start an eviction on a property that was vacant to begin with, but nobody went out and checked it. And that was the biggest thing I saw, where agents would come in and they would have golden opportunities and then they would fail, is just sloppy task management, sloppy property management. So, you know, one of the biggest ones we saw is BPOs that would come back and they'd have crappy photos, right? Like back when I was in it, we weren't taking photos with the phone, right? It was all still, we're just going to get this camera roll developed, and, you know, digital camera was a great thing. But that was the biggest problem, is we're taking pictures of rooms and we have no reference to what that room is. And I think that's what, if everybody can understand that when you're working with an asset manager, you're working with somebody who is not in your market, who may never have sold a home, who may not have any real estate experience at all. So when you're showing pictures of a home, it may be difficult for them to envision the layout of the home based on the pictures that you're giving. If you're taking, you know, bedrooms tend to look the same. So if you're not altering the angles or noting what room it is, we can't figure out the layout of the home. Taking photos without lights on, and a lot of REO properties may not have lights on there. So using a flash or having some kind of lighting source to take a picture that actually shows us what the property looks like. And then we're trying to make repair recommendations based on the information that an agent is giving. So if you're going to show me a damaged wall, this is something everybody can do to win a ton of points, is you just start, you know, giving some kind of reference point, like a pencil held up to it to see how big that hole is or something like that. So if you want to keep getting business from the asset managers, it's once you're assigned that property, it's you just go perform. You do everything you can to get that property marketed and sold at the highest price possible as fast as possible, because now I'm going to keep feeding you business. And the nice thing is, we at the VA, you would have your ops managers, and we would stay regionalized. So we would stay in whatever part of the country was divided up. But our asset managers would rotate every quarter, or maybe every now and then we do it every 6 months. But you would get a whole group of 6 to 10 asset managers that would move into a new section. The relationships with the asset managers, they're coming into that part of the country and they're bringing in agents who they know from previous companies or who they've worked with previously that performed on their assets. So I think that's a way that you can just keep getting business from your existing REO source, is perform so that they want to keep handing you assets. And I think we talked about this on our how to get into REO, but the easiest way to get assets once you're in there is reassignments from the asset manager, right? Because that doesn't have to go through vendor management. I can just reassign it to anybody that I want to. And if, like Josh, if I get an asset in Phoenix and I just inherited that area and you're not in my network, I can get you in the network now, because I can say, hey, I've got this asset, it has to move. I've worked with Josh and his team. That's where it's going. And I can push you through vendor management a lot faster. So I think that's the biggest thing. You have to perform on the assets. You know, all around, I don't want to go too deep into the scorecard, but, you know, your valuations have to be there. We've said that before. But your valuation has to be there, and that you're going to get the right offer, but you're also not going to, I don't know if we talked about it with valuations, but you're actually penalized if the home sells for too much more than what you said it was worth, right? So it's up to 105% down to 95%. So if I say the home is worth 200K, I don't want to go sell it for 230,000, right? Because I'm going over, and the asset manager looks at that and says, okay, you undercut the value, you cost us money, maybe you're not the best agent to be working this. So it all comes into play, but I think that's the number one thing people overlook, is you perform on this asset, I'm going to keep feeding you. That's
and just so you guys know, that are watching and listening to this, I mean, Ben and I are going to really, in these first 4, our goal with these first 4, parts, first, 4 podcasts, have been to really just kind of do a high level overview of the REO and short sale world, right? So you can wrap your mind around it. You can, understand it at a deeper level, understand the importance of it, understand kind of the main, parts that go involved and so forth. Then after this, we're going to start, like, this journey is going to continue, man. Like, we're going to start getting much more specific in as this continues to go on, where, we'll do an episode just on the scorecard. We'll do an episode just on the BPO. So that way we can start breaking these down. But if we, started with, okay, well, here's how you do a BPO, and you don't know the importance of it, and that's part of the process and whatever, it wouldn't be as powerful as, we want to have a high level understanding, and then we kind of start, micro breaking it down. So just want you guys to know that that's coming. So, yeah, dude, and this is something that I don't know if I've said this in past series, but this is something I talk about all the time. And I don't mean this is a negative thing. I mean, it is, you got to be prepared. But when you do an amazing job for your asset managers, when you exceed their expectations, you become a victim of your own success.
Oh yeah.
And what I mean by that is, you get rewarded on a high level. Well, you got to be prepared for that, because it's not like, okay, let's just say, you're doing a decent job or whatever. You get in, they're feeding you one a week, a new listing a week, right? Well, then boom, all of a sudden, after you've worked, a half dozen of these together, and they know they can trust you. They know, right? Like, you've eliminated these headaches. You're doing an amazing job. It's not like you go from one a week to now two a week. No. And then wait till, that looks good. And then they go to 3 a week. It could be like one, and then all of a sudden now you're getting fed 10, right? Like it can, so you got to be prepared for that and know that and understand that. And, as Ben mentioned, you guys got to understand, like, we know the industry out there. You guys know your peers, we're working with co-broke agents all the time. Mm-hmm. Just because they're another REO agent, with this bank or outsourcer doesn't mean their behaviors of how they do business, change. And as you guys know, man, it's so hard to get agents to return messages, to return calls, to meet timelines on contracts, that's one of the biggest headaches of being an agent is the unprofessionalism, of most of the agents that jump into this industry. It's no different in the REO world, man. So, if you can eliminate those headaches and you're doing an amazing job, right, they want to continue feeding you more and more and more, because it makes their life easier and also allows them to hit their goals and get their bonuses and so forth. And it becomes crucial. And as Ben mentioned, dude, like, not just guys, when it comes to getting tasks done, I mean, here was always my rule, is whatever that task frame was, we just cut it in half. Oh, that was always our goal. So if we had 24 hours in an occupancy check, like, dude, we're knocking out that out same day, like, right, within hours. You have 48 hours to do a BPO. Okay, we're knocking that thing out in 24 hours, mm-hmm. Right? Because again, it just accelerates that speed. Right now, you got to be prepared and have a scale model, because I can promise you, if you guys do that, and not just as Ben talked about, it's not just about completing the tasks, in half the time. It's also doing the tasks, right, like at an exceptional level. But if you're starting to do that, again, you were going to get rewarded very, very fast. Mm-hmm. So you gotta know how to scale that, which in the future video or future episode here, we'll talk about how to scale this between staff and grow the team and, all of that as you grow with this. But Ben, I know that you kind of hit some, gave some great examples with the pictures and the BPO and so forth, but kind of on a, what would you say, like the top 3 biggest headaches and complaints are, from asset managers about, the realtors in their network? Just like, we can all probably sit there and be like, okay, well, here's the top 3 things that we can't stand about lenders, or, and of course they would say the same shit about us, but, just so we understand, because we want to make sure that, like, they don't have these complaints about us, and that, they like, we're not creating pain for them.
Yeah. That's a great question. So I think that what I go back to, let's see, the biggest 3, because I know that, when you're talking about you're the victim of your own success, I know we've talked about AZ in your market there. And when I was at Green River, he was one of my big agents, and he did not start out as a big agent. It was onesie twosies, but every time I called him, it was, hey, Ben, this is AZ, how can I help you? And I could never ask for anything too big that he wouldn't get it done. So I think that's important, but I think the number one thing is that task completion, and you hit it right on the head. So what a lot of people don't understand on the tasks is it gives you 48 hours, but we expect it to be done the minute we trigger that task for you, really. So the agents that understand and aren't working, if you're working off the tasks and you're looking at your due dates, I've heard a lot of arguments from agents that didn't get repeat assets because they say, well, I did my tasks on time. I had 3 days to do it. And our expectation was, well, one day, well, we only put the 3 days in there just because, someone up the chain who didn't understand the urgency said, yeah, let it go 3 days. So the smart agents were the ones who were out there doing the occupancy inspection and taking photos for their BPO and making a list of repairs so they could just bang it all out at once. So the number one thing from agents is it's that task, man. I think I shared it with you, and we can share this with anybody. I'll go through and make sure I take out any proprietary stuff, but I actually won an award at Green River when I was a sales manager for actually breaking down what untrained agents were costing the company. Because we've said this time and time again, training doesn't exist. People are afraid to put training together because then it locks the it locks the outsourcer or the bank, it locks them into a specific process. And we know that when you work with an agent, with an asset manager, it's a different personality of how they want these tasks completed. So they're really hesitant to put anything in writing. And I went through and I actually broke down what it was costing us, just asset manager timeframe, for rejecting tasks. This wasn't even just answering questions for agents when they call. It was, a lot of people don't realize, but the average asset manager has roughly 65 various tasks that would be assigned to them for one asset. It's everything. Inspect photos, re-inspect photos, approve BPO, all this stuff. Like, we have the most tasks. So if that BPO comes in and those photos are incomplete, we have to take the time to look at that, reject that, trigger a new task for you, and then wait for that to come back in and then scrub it again. Same with contracts, offers, all that stuff. I broke it down and it was costing them at the time, and Green River wasn't a big company, but it was costing like $300,000-$400,000 a year in man hours just on rejected and incomplete tasks or tasks done inappropriately. And that chews up your time. When you're looking at an asset manager, I don't know how many people can comprehend, but we're managing 500 assets at a time. That's a lot of assets that we have to keep our eyes on every day. So the number one complaint is the way tasks are completed and the timely completion of those tasks. And then number two is being able to get a hold of the agent. I think it doesn't matter if it's midnight, I should be able to call you. And that's an unrealistic expectation. I realize that now. Like, now that I'm an agent, I realize how hard we were on agents. And we'll talk about this in another one, but I think that there's, I know for me, there was some jealousy that I was, feeding agents and watching them close 40 or 50 deals a month, because I was making, I was bonusing $100 a file, and I'm watching people get paid big commissions. So, there was a little bit of if I'm going to be feeding you and you're making money and you're building a business around me, then I am your most important client. I should be able to call you on the weekends. I should be able to call you whenever I want to. And not being able to get a hold of an agent was the most frustrating thing, because I'm not out in the field, man. I'm like we are right now. I'm sitting at my computer. I've got something urgent. I'm calling you specifically for this. And if you don't answer and give me a response, I'm going to forget about it because I have all these other assets I got to go in and start working down through. So communication would be number two. Number one would be task completion. Number two would be communication. And then number three, I think resourcefulness. Like, we need somebody who I really think we did this on our first podcast. We talked about my first aged asset meeting where I just got my ass handed to me. The owner of my company is there with one of the big shots at Chase, and they chewed me for 2 hours on this portfolio that I had just had for a week. I was brand new. And I learned through the rest of my career the value of having agents that I could call. Like, I could call you and I could say, hey, Josh, I've got this HOA violation. I need to know everything about the violation, what they'll settle for. Can you take care of that? And you would handle it. And I know that I've got a partner that can go get that done for me. If I have to keep chasing you down and saying, hey, did you follow up on that HOA violation? Did you find out what it was? Hey, we're incurring $100 a day fine. It's not going to work. And I know we talked about Eddie in Florida. That was what really stuck me to Eddie, is I ran into a huge code violation that was like $75,000, and he took care of it. He did everything he needed to get the property up to code. He got us the bids quickly. He got us the right number of bids with the right line items. Everything was done so that we could make a decision quickly. We authorized the check, and then he got everything taken care of, and we didn't keep incurring those fees, because that comes back on me as the asset manager. Like, when they're yelling, they're not yelling at you, they're yelling at me. And then I turn around and then I yell at you, and it creates this sour relationship. So you've got to complete your tasks on time, and you've got to do them the right way. If you don't know how to complete them the right way, you got to raise your hand or have a conversation with the asset manager and say, how do you want, what does this need to look like for you on some of these various ones like BPOs and valuations? You've got to be available, and you've got to be a resource. Even maybe not even just code violations. Like, I want to know that if I have a property that's aged and I have to sell it quickly, I want to know that I can call you, Josh, and I can say, hey, this thing is aged. I don't care what you have to do. I need it under contract in a week, because you're going to give me the right price. You're going to give me the right marketing. You're going to give me everything I need to get that offer quickly and solve my problems. And you've said that before with how do I get started? You're solving problems, right? How can you make my life easier? How can you help me bonus? Because I'm a narcissist, just like everybody else in the REO world. I'm focused on hitting my numbers so that I can hit my bonuses, so that I can alleviate the headache of all these tasks. And if an agent can give that to me, I'll give them business anywhere I go for the rest of my career.
Yeah, love it, man. Such awesome stuff. And again, it's why I love doing these with you, because being like, you were in that seat, the pains, the frustrations, right. And us as agents, like, until like we became homies and I started learning all this stuff from you, like, asset man, like, you don't get told this stuff. And just so you guys know that are watching, listen to this, like one of the biggest frustrations for me over the years, and this is, up until I met Ben, and at that time that I met Ben, he had just left that world and decided to jump in and to be an actual real estate agent. And, obviously has grown his team since then and is, killing it in Utah. But so because of that, though, he was allowed to share some of this stuff that would have got him fired when he worked there. Like, for example, how do your asset managers, like, knowing and understanding, how do they get bonus? How do they get paid? Like all these little things. How does this internal scorecard work? It was just a big guessing game, and it's hard for us. And there's that, it's a shitty process. That if there's better communication between all parties, would improve it. But I'm sure they have their reasons of why they can't, right? So, and the other thing too, you guys, is like Ben mentioned, look, there's no training, when it comes to from the asset managers and so forth. And, and some people might look at that as oh, well, they should, right? Well, I look at it as, I mean, maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't, right? However, it's our job to be prepared. And I look at it the same way. Let's just say, as an example, I go to a traditional listing appointment. I go sit down, I get their listing, and then I look at them, and then I say, okay, well, how do you want me to go out there and market your property? And how do you want me to go out? No, like, they expect me to be the expert and know those things already. Yeah, right. Like, I mean, that's kind of the same thing that we're asking if we're bitching that these asset managers aren't training for us. Like, they gave us their business. It's our job to know then how to be the expert to service that business. That's on us, right? Then the other thing too, so the last thing I'll hit on this, and then we'll move on to the next point, is it's not just the increased business, you guys, that you will get from that particular asset manager that you're working with, but they will do everything in their power to feed you more. It's, dude, if you ever go visit a bank or an outsourced shop, I mean, it's, they're cubicles, dude. So 3 feet next to, right, they're just in a room with all these other asset managers, and all those asset managers will be in, other states and whatever, right. But the asset managers that are also in our area, they're with every single day. They're working with whatever. And, those conversations happen, right. So next thing you know, when you're crushing it for one and they're doing an amazing job and whatever, all of a sudden you get a message from another asset manager of, okay, hey, Ben told me you're doing an amazing job. I need some help over here. So then bam, now I got 2 asset managers, feed me now double the amount of business, right. Those things snowball.
Yeah.
So then from there, and this next part will apply to REOs and short sales, which is leveraging that property. And again, this is something that I think most miss, man. They just, put the sign in the ground, go out there and list them, and, right. But this is now a property, just like a traditional property, that you can go out there and market and whatever. So, I mean, what's some of your, top advice on leveraging that to scale it for other business?
My number one is, I wish we had this back in the day, but I love the Home Partners program. I know you did a podcast with Kim, and we've done some other videos on Home Partners. But the number one thing, I used to teach a really in-depth course on cash for keys and how to make it more efficient to vacate properties and how to deliver that cash for keys. And one of my number one strategies there was, you've got to have some kind of vehicle for the residents to now go to, because look, you have to be sympathetic. They're embarrassed. They don't know, they don't want everybody knowing that they just got evicted. So they're going to stay in that property as long as possible. And we've had people get evicted where the husband never told the wife they were behind and they were getting foreclosed on. So people would stay in it. So we always said you had to have a solution. Well, with Home Partners, if it's in people's area, it gives you an option to help somebody rent to own a home and earn the commission on that sale. So that's one revenue stream right there, that you can transition somebody into a new home. It makes it look like they're buying a new home, saves everybody all the way around. And you still get paid your BAC. The number one thing for me though, is we've talked about this. Most outsourcers have they have a goal for repair strategies, and repairs being over a certain dollar amount. So VAs is a little low. Freddie's is like 5,000. VAs was like 500 considered it a repair. But most of them are going in and they want to do carpet and they want to do paint if it's going to be an owner occupied property, if that's our strategy. That I would sit on those things all day. That is your mega open house. That's it. Now there are some things, because we don't want to see you bring the buyer in. So that's where you have to have a team or somebody in your office, because that throws up a big red flag that you underpriced the property and you're trying to just double in this thing. So, but it's a good way to bring in business, not just for that property, but now for, traditional buyers. I always like the strategy. I like the agents that go knock on the doors of the neighbors and they say, hey, you know what? I know this property was, it's gone through foreclosure, it's gone through eviction. I know it's an eyesore. I'm going to have prop pres out here. I'm going to take care of this property. I'm going to get it up to speed. Call me if anything happens to it. You're now establishing, like, I didn't realize until I got into, being a full-time agent, but it's one of the easiest ways to start circle prospecting, because you're solving a problem by saying, I know this property is a pain in the ass. I know they had to evict these people. I know that you hate seeing this thing that is now an eyesore in your neighborhood. I'm going to take care of it. And now you've got another contact. And it's that whole same script, right? Do you want to know what this is going to do to your value? Do you want me to keep you updated when we get a sale? Do you want, is there anything I can help you with? I think that's the big one. And then one that I think a lot of people aren't doing is, you're right, it's not just sign calls, but you've got to start building your investor database, because not every REO outsourcer is going to have that first look period. Freddie, Fannie, they may have it, VA has it, but not everybody's going to have that first look period. And I'm glad you mentioned the terminology, because I forget that not everybody knows the terminology. So some outsourcers or banks will have a period where they want to encourage owner occupied properties. So what they're going to do is they're going to say, look, once we list this property for the first 10 or 14 days or 5 days, whatever it is, we will only look at offers from owner occupied buyers. We won't look at any investors. We won't look at cash. We're only going to look at, finance deals that are owner occupied, because they want to strengthen the community with owners. But those properties don't always sell, and you're going to have some that are in very rough condition. If you've built up a network of investors, it's a great way to keep working with them by saying, look, man, I have access to properties. I'm doing BPOs before these things hit the market, so I can keep my eye on this. I'm doing this. I've got this REO sale that I know it's aged and I need to sell it quickly. If you have cash buyers and investors there, you're going to help your business as REO, but now you're building that relationship where you're going to say, hey, I know you couldn't get this one, but I found this property for you. And it's just, you're leveraging it to build a traditional business. And I know that's what we do. We take everything we do traditional and apply it to REO the exact same way. We do Facebook ads, we do open houses, we do mailers, we do door knocks, we do circle prospecting, we do the whole thing, because we know we can leverage that one listing to multiple sales.
Yep. Love it, man. All powerful stuff. And this is, this is what really opened up the doors for me, of getting in with these large investment institutions, AKA hedge funds, was because of REO and Short Sale, right? Like, they wanted my properties. Right. And after, you're getting so many submissions and they're reaching out to you, having conversations, and, because they'll have internal contacts that are kind of running their acquisition department and so forth. Right. And that, just kind of led to other conversations. Yeah. Hey, man, what's your guys' strategy? What are you looking for? Right. How can I support and help you guys get more properties? And that just led to meetings and more conversations. Well, next thing you know, not only am I having, REO and Short Sales, I'm able to go out there and develop these hedge fund relationships that start leading to another 20 and plus closings a month and so forth, right? So just keep your eyes peeled for that stuff, but a lot of some of the things that Ben talked about there is, coming at from the perspective of just like you would with a traditional listing. And I think that this is really important, you guys, right? We see too many agents that because, it's a foreclosure or a short sale, which look, I mean, the reality is we're usually going to get dinged a little bit on the commission, right? Some banks might only pay 2% on the listing side. Some might pay 2.5%. So they might think of this as an excuse, to go out there and be kind of sloppy with their marketing and so forth. But here's the thing: is the volume makes up for it. So don't even think about it. Don't even worry about the commissions. Don't, right? Like I promise you, if you do this right, like it'll be one of the most profitable centers of your business, hands down. Right. But treating it just like you had a $500,000 or $1 million listing, meaning great professional photos and doing everything you think you can to take care of those properties. I know we talked about this in another episode, but when I go do is a bank owned agent, if you will, REO agent, like you got to go do weekly inspections, right? Okay, well, dude, if I saw weeds in the, popping up in the driveway or whatever, like just go walk through it and just take care of those, right? Have that property looking at its best and then do all the professional marketing and so forth. Photos and all of that, because then again, man, now you can leverage this for Facebook ads. You can leverage this, for whatever your online strategy is, for your open houses, for other methods, to gain that business and so forth. Plus, it's going to help you. The better you market that property, the more professional managed property, it's going to move it that much quicker for whether it's the short sale, client or the bank, which you'll be rewarded on many different fronts.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. I don't think everybody realizes how much you'll stand out by doing just these things we've talked about, the professional photos, and don't keep that a secret, man. When you're marketing an open house, send that to the asset manager. Hey, check out this flyer I just did. This is the open house. Hey, here's how many people I had through there. Share that, because you want to shine a spotlight on that, because honestly, man, people aren't doing it. There is a lot of complacent agents, and we've had this conversation before with, how do you get in? Look, there's a lot of agents that are registered with the companies, but there's not a lot that are getting the bulk of the business because they're just not performing. So you do have to shine. Once you're in the door and you get that asset and you can shine, you're going to get the reassignments, you're going to get the business. It's going to open up all these other doors. But share that with the asset managers, because we don't see that, man. We see a lot of garbage photos. We see a lot of poor efforts. We see a lot of monthly marketing reports that have zero feedback on showings. And we're like, how can you be on the market for 2 weeks and you're telling me we've had 0 showings, 0 feedback? You don't know what's going on with this property. If you can come back and say, hey, look, here's my log. Here's what people said about it. Here's what they think about the price, the condition, all the stuff. You stand out as the number one agent. And like you'd said, Josh, I have taken 40 assets in one day from somebody, and I've given 40 assets in one day to somebody and said, take these because the agent's not doing their job. I need these to sell. And even like you talk about with the volume, I'm handing somebody hundreds of thousands of dollars when we do that. And that's why you have to do that. But don't keep it a secret. That's what I'm saying. When you do those things, don't be obnoxious about it. You've said this already. I'm just going to reiterate this to people. Asset managers hate being on the phone. So don't call them to tell them this stuff. Send in an email unless they like talking on the phone. I only knew one asset manager, Dave Hargrove, loved being on the phone. Everybody else hated it. So send it to them, but just let them know this is what I'm doing for you. This is how I'm serving you. And they'll remember that. And like you said, it's tight quarters, man. People talk about that. We take that stuff around the office. We share with each other who's killing it, and we share with each other who's really dropping the ball.
Yep. Love it. And you guys, again, man, it's just don't think of this being different than any other client, right? Now, of course, the process is different, right? There's a little bit of different nuances on how you manage the overall process for this, right? But it's approaching in that same manner, man. And in this business, we are all so blessed, you guys. I know it can seem like a negative. And I get agents reaching out to me every single day, whether it's with my own team or through the podcast or with all my coaching clients and so forth, right? That are just venting about their frustration of how the majority of agents, act and carry themselves, and the lack of professionalism and the lack of seriousness and whatever, right? And look, like we can't change that. This is the way I look at it. It is what it is, right? But I turn that into a positive where it's like, I've never seen another industry that makes it so easy to just go out there and fucking dominate, dude.
Right.
Like if you are truly committed to mastering your craft and operating from a high place of professionalism and high place of ethics and morals and putting your clients before commissions. And like you truly are laser focused on doing this in the best possible way that you can, and you're serious about it. It is like fishing with freaking dynamite. And that's whether you're going traditional, that's whether you're going REO, that's whether you're going, I mean, all of it, whatever path that you go, it is so easy to stand out. But you gotta come from that level of professionalism, mastery, and just be all in, fully commit, man. And it's a game and life changer.
I agree. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just saying, one of my favorite podcasts you did was with Roger Seeley, and he made that comment that when he got in the business and he saw his competitions, like, I can stand above this. I can just outperform. I can give better service. And true to his word, the dude does, I don't even know how much he does now, but makes a fortune.
He's a star of his own luxury, selling like the mansions in Dallas, Texas, or whatever show. Right. And right, it's slaying it. So, all right, you guys. One last thing here that I just want to note before we wrap this up. And before I go into this, I just want to be very clear here of, we are not doing this series to try to sell you guys anything, pitch a product to you, whatever. I mean, we're here to educate you guys, help you, all of those things, and do what we can to support you. And hopefully you're getting a ton of value out of these. And our goal is with each of these to continue delivering value and not, make these into glorified sales pitches and so forth. So, I just want you to know that, before I go try to sell you. No, just kidding. However, though, Ben and I have teamed up and created a program called REO University, which is an online digital course where we break this stuff down all step by step, inside and out, every step of it. Doing live BPOs with you, doing live property inspections with you, like going into the field and breaking all of this stuff down into extreme detail. For those of you that are really wanting to master this and learn this, in the quickest, and most effective way to really master this and understand this and go out there and have the most success with it. Because again, it's Ben and I had to learn this stuff on our own, and it's very difficult to go out there and find that type of training in this industry. It's really non-existent. So we decided to get together to go out there and create that program. So below is a link that you will see if you just scroll below, and then in the comments or the show notes, wherever you're watching and listening, there's a link to REO University, that program, where you can learn more about it. We have a lot of information on there, so you know what's included and so forth. And then below that, I'll have the promo code for you guys. So if you decide to move forward, and you do want to move forward with this, we have a promo right now that you can type in there, which again will be below, that will save you $500. So you get the whole entire program for only $997, or you can break it up into payments where it's like $333 for 3 months. But you have lifetime access to this training, because it's crucial of, you're going to go through it to get the understanding or whatever, but now you can use this as your kind of your resource guide playbook as you're getting assets and going through these tasks and whatever, right? Like this kind of becomes your operations manual to help you navigate as you're going through these tasks and so forth. So all that's below. So I just wanted to just let you know that that's there. So if you're looking for advanced training, because again, it's non-existent in our industry, we want to make sure that you know that it's there. But as always, truly appreciate you guys being here. Truly appreciate you watching this or listening to this. Hopefully you found value out of this. And Ben, as always, man, appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to be here, brother.
Yeah, you too, my friend. That was good. It's good stuff.
Yeah, awesome, man. All right, you guys, we will see you next week with part number 5. We'll talk to you then. Peace. I hope you enjoyed this GSD Mode podcast episode. Now make sure you get shit done and smash that subscribe button now.